And then it happened, Book 7, Chapter 6, First Impressions. In life, you only get one opportunity to introduce yourself to someone for the first time, and you should always try to make a good impression. Gordon, Paul, and I learned this the hard way. It had been raining for 2 days straight, and we had spent both days at Gordon's house killing time, waiting for the rain to stop so we could have some fun outside. The only bit of excitement was that a huge moving van had pulled up in front of the vacant house across the street from Gordon's, and movers were busy carrying boxes into the house. Of course, we knew it was not polite to stare at someone's stuff when they were moving in, so we were careful to stay out of sight and peek from behind the curtains to see what we could learn about the new people. Paul and I soon grew tired of spying on the movers. You could only watch workmen unload chairs and sofas and lamps for so long. Gordon, however, sat out of sight behind the curtains, staring across the street with his binoculars, while Paul and I watched TV. "Hey," said Gordon, "a car just pulled into the driveway. It might be the new people." Paul and I scrambled to the window just in time to see a man, a woman, a girl, and a dog get out of the car and dash through the rain into their new house. "Darn," sighed Gordon, tossing his binoculars to the couch. "Well, that's a disappointment. Another girl in the street. Why can't any boys our age ever move into this neighbourhood?" As Gordon continued to gripe about the new girl, the rain let up and finally stopped. I interrupted Gordon to suggest that we get on our bikes and go to the corner store for some snacks. "That's a great idea. I'm starving," said Paulo, and the three of us biked off to the store. As we were heading back home, Gordon suddenly stopped and pointed up the street. "Look," he said, "I think that's the new girl who just moved in. Why don't we be neighbourly and introduce ourselves?" Up ahead, I could see the new girl walking away from us toward her new house. She was carefully avoiding the puddles in the sidewalk. Spying the huge puddle on the road beside her, I suddenly knew what Gordon was up to. Pedaling hard on his bike, he made straight for the large puddle. With perfect timing, he raced his bike through it, sending up a huge plume of water on the unsuspecting girl and soaking her from head to foot. "Hi, I'm Gordon," he yelled as he rode by. "And I'm Paulo," shouted Paulo, imitating Gordon and splashing the girl again. "And I'm—" But I never got the words out of my mouth. As my bike sent up a wall of water, the new girl startled me by jumping off the sidewalk and trying to tackle me off my bike. I was barely able to swerve out of the way in time. I sped off to catch up with Gordon and Paulo, leaving the new girl in the middle of the road yelling at us. "Ho, ho, ho, ho! Talk about rude," chuckled Gordon when I caught up to him and Paulo. "She didn't even tell us her name." It began sprinkling again as we leaned on our bikes against the wall in Gordon's garage, so we headed back into the house to watch TV and to eat our snacks. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. Paulo peered out the window while Gordon went to answer the door. "It's the new girl," he hissed, and Paul and I crept closer to listen. Gordon opened the door and the new girl thrust a plate of freshly baked cookies into his hands. "Here," she said, "I think we got off on the wrong foot earlier, and I wanted to come over and introduce myself properly. After all, we are going to be neighbours. My name's Alex. I baked these for you guys." Thanks," mumbled Gordon, too surprised to say much else. Oh, and one more thing," she said. "Here's a movie I made of my favourite TV shows. I thought you might enjoy it. I'm a big cartoon fan." She handed it to Gordon and headed back home through the rain. "Well, what do you know? She might not be so bad after all," said Gordon. "And these cookies are pretty good." "Real good," said Paulo, munching on a handful. "Let's see what cartoons she likes." While we enjoyed some really good classic cartoons, we finished off the cookies. Too stuffed to move, we watched one show after another. And then it happened. Abruptly, the cartoon we were watching cut out and suddenly Alex appeared on the screen. She was in a kitchen and she was baking. She was smiling at the camera as she rolled out the cookie dough on the breadboard. Then she set the breadboard on the floor and whistled. Into the kitchen bounded a small dog, still damp from rain. Pointing to the breadboard, Alex said, "Sit!" And the little dog sat down right in the middle of the cookie dough. "Lie down," commanded Alex, and the dog immediately obeyed. "Roll," said Alex, and the dog began rolling from side to side, scratching his back on the cookie dough. "Good boy," said Alex, scraping a handful of cookie dough from the dog's coat, which she added back to the dough on the breadboard. She then proceeded to cut neat circles from the dough with a cookie cutter, and smiling at the camera again, she put the batch of cookies in the oven to bake. Yuck. End of chapter.